Right, so it's been a few weeks since I've been working on the ute, and I just wanted to show you why I take so long in between episodes sometimes. So I'll show you what I've been up to. So anyway, I've been putting some irrigation in my property. So I've just, about 1.5 k's of pipe, and that's been soaking up pretty much every single weekend I've had for the last 6 weeks. So yeah, I've just backfilled all the trenches. Pretty much goes all the way down onto the flats and down into the right down into the other end of the property. So yeah, that's been an enormous task. I've still got to backfill hundreds of meters. I've been using this toy as well. So as you know, I've got Kuiper, the brand. Decided to start bringing these things in as well, and mini skid steers, and been doing some R&D on this one. It's got a Honda GX690. It's got Eaton drive motors and Italian pumps, and bloody well built and tough as nails. 23 horsepower, meter bucket. Yeah, and that's helped me do all this work. So given they've been successful with the testing, I'm going to bring a few more in. So if you're interested, let me know. I know you probably just want to get back into the ute, but just sort of let you know, if you've been following along, why things take so long. And this, where I am, it's as dry as a nun, so it's, yeah, got to get the water up here, and the soil's absolutely shite as well. So first stage is to get the water up, and then you can start to bring the soil in. As you know, if you're into growing stuff, it's all about water and good soil. And there, it keeps going down there. So yeah, you can see an enormous amount to go, but that's what I've been up to. Well, long time no see. It's been a couple of months almost. So this is a bit of a build update. I've been working behind the scenes, getting all these little 1%ers finished so I can start the assembly. So I'm going to this episode is basically just going to run you through what I've been up to for the last 2 months. I haven't been sitting doing nothing. I've been doing a fair bit actually. So let's get into it. So anyway, I haven't been the best filming this bonnet respray, and it's been an absolute roller coaster, to say the least. So I did the underside, and the underside went really well, and except for there's a little bit of plastic that just got onto there. But this is the top side, and on camera, she looks pretty good. Like obviously, I've refined the way I'm using that base coat, the clear, and I've never had a problem with the base coat. I've always found that Welcome gun has been really good for application of base coat, and you know, maybe down the track if I could afford 2 guns, I'd have that as a base coat gun and then a separate clear gun, just so you don't have to keep mixing and cleaning the pots. So anyway, I'll give you the bit of the rundown of what I've eventuated with this bonnet. So over here, I've got the nose cone. Nose cone is absolutely flawless. I can't spot one blemish in that, because the bodywork was great. The metallic went down beautifully. and the clear went down as well. Very minimal, no runs and very minimal orange peel. Bonnet, different story. So what happens when I was starting to get the primer sanded back, I got the bodywork really good, and as I was sanding back on the final pass, I bit through to a few metal spots. So then I was like, I read that you can sort of dab a bit of primer over those metal spots before you go for the base coat. In doing that, I created some sort of highs in the primer. So I started to sand them and went back to bare metal again. And I was like, I was chasing my tail. So I ended up sanding them back and then going for the base coat with most of the primer, most of the bare metal spots covered, just a few little areas that weren't. But in the process of doing that, you know, obviously you're wasting some time, and I created a couple of little undulations over there which weren't there before, so I would have been better off just leaving it. But the main problem was, as I was spraying it, everything was going well, and I noticed that there was a couple of light spots, like one here and one over there, where there must have been a little bit of a sanding mark that I'd left that was a bit rougher, and metallic was catching that in the light, and you could see two light spots, which has happened on that door before. So I was panicking and thinking, oh shit, you know, that's going to be able to be seen. We ended up doing 5 coats of the base coat and letting 10 minutes dry in between each pass. And what happened is, you know, that allowed the colour to overtake those light spots as it dried, and that fixed the problem. So I was like, okay, sweet. The metallics laid down beautifully. It wasn't any mottling, no blemishes, nothing. And I loaded up the clear and went in and got the gun and just gave it a test spray. It was all seemed good. And as I ran it over, an air pocket got caught inside the air cap, behind the air cap, and splurted about 5 drops of clear all over the base coat. Straight away you could see 5 big dark spots on the base coat, and I was like, fuck, you know, that's it. It's a respray after all this effort, you know, 8 hours of sanding prep, plus the other time that I'd done to get the bodyworks pristine on this bonnet. You can see how flat it is. Yeah, I was absolutely ropeable. You know, anxiety was going through the roof. I'm like, okay, well, that's it. So I took a risk and I thought, stuff it, I've got nothing to lose. I was on my last canister of paint, because that was the paint that I'd been saving from the quarter panels for the bonnet and the cowl panel, because so I wanted to match it up, just did the drop coat with that. And I was like, I don't have enough to respray it, so I'm gonna have to just take a risk. And I ran a low pressure base coat back over the clear spray, minimal spray that I'd put over each side, and I had to end up finishing 1 coat of clear just to keep it even, because I knew that the base coat's going to take on a part of that clear. Anyway, so I ended up doing another 3 layers of clear. I know that's a massive risk, because it could have stood up and basically frizzled or something in the clear, but it settled down nicely. It didn't actually have a reaction at all. And I gave it a couple of dust coats, and then basically I was ready to go with the clear again, and I dropped 4 really thick coats of clear on it, and it glassed up quite nice. It still needs a buff and a polish, but yeah, nothing like the previous stuff that I've done. Obviously it helps when it's flat like that. I didn't get any runs, and the tape marks on the edge were absolutely pristine. The only problem is a little bit of the plastic blue under there, and the clear coat grabbed there, but that will easily come out with a bit of wet and sand. You can actually peel that off, so it's not the end of the world. But everything else is really, yeah, spot on. You can't see anything. So I nailed that, and as you can see, you know, the panel's pretty glass, so I'm really happy with it. But as a result of doing that save to get rid of the drops, with the base coat over the clear, I have got some subtle mottling, which is a pain in the ass. You can't see it on camera. But I can see it, and you can probably see it. You're going to be able to see it outside. Just ever so slightly, just a little mottle just in the centre where the clear had run over, and I probably did it a bit heavier there than here. But honestly, the amount of effort that I've put into this bonnet, I'm not going to respray it, and you can't even notice it to the general punter that's walking past. You will never ever notice that there's some mottle unless you're sort of standing around about here where the windscreen is, which you're probably not going to be, so, well, you won't be because you can't. So yeah, you can see it's a little bit there, but if anything, it sort of darkens in the middle and feathers out. So it sort of works with the panel shape, and I can live with that. The main thing is getting the thing assembled and functional. And then down the track, it's not hard to take the bonnet off and give it a respray. Or, you know, as Mark said from Bog Dust for Breakfast, just do a closed door respray and, you know, do it properly. And look, they might even get him to do that down the track for the whole car. But I think it's going to be fine, you know, that it's looking pretty sweet. The rest of the car, now it's polished. And this bonnet will just add to it. So that was the last panel of the whole main ute and yeah, the nose cone. So they're both colour coded to the same drop coat of the original paint that I'd got, same as the quarter panels and the roof. So your eye will be following down, and obviously the guards and the door were a different batch, but I've already laid them up, and you know, there's very, very minimal difference in the tonal change. So that's the nature of this paint. It sort of changes with tone anyway. So what it could look on one side from the pearl is different from the other. So that's why it's very hard to pick if it's a different shade or not. So anyway, that's the bonnet. Overall, I'm pretty happy that I'd saved it, you know, because there's no way I wanted to go through and do all that again. And I'm really, really happy with, yeah, the flatness and the shape of the bonnet. I've always said that these bonnets are a really nice design and they work well with the paint. And it's just a real shame that after all that effort and laying down of the metallic flawlessly, that mistake happened with the droplets. And I guess that's just me not knowing the gun. I should have tightened the air cap super tight. It was tight, but it needed to be super tight because the pressure was just too great, and it blew back some of that clear coat, unfortunately, and yeah, I couldn't save it. So anyway, as you can see, it's still perfectly good to put on the car, and yeah, that's what I'll be rolling with. So that is the bonnet and the nose cone done. All right, so now that the bonnet and nose cone are done, I'm moving back to the tailgate. So before I get into the tailgate, I'll just show you what I've done. So these basically have been painted, and I use the same KBS fuel tank sealer paint to do these. Because they were sort of an electroplated metal. Yeah, I just saw it. They were all pretty good, just a bit dirty. So I cleaned them up and painted it. And the tailgate will hardly ever be open, so I know it's going to mark a bit there, but very strong paint. So yeah, I think that's just a nice little contrast to have a bit of silver there. And I've also painted the hinges now, so I colour coded them in the anthracite brown, which they came up really nice. I've obviously got some new bolts and stuff from the Kingswood Country or Resto Country, and the bumper bars there, obviously. You would have seen that episode where I polished it up. So all of these little bits are going to go together. These are the stainless steel bolts that I'll be putting in there, and didn't put them in last time. So got to polish them up as well, and they'll sit in there. Then I'm going to take, you can buy these new rubber strips. They're actually on Rare Spares or Resto Country. Not overly expensive, but I'm just going to clean these up for now because they're pretty good nick. Give them a paint. Clean them up in the back, and I'll probably Sikaflex. I'll pop them in, but I'll pop those in, but I'll probably Sikaflex a layer on anyway, just to make them stick on there a little bit better, and that will come up pretty good. Pretty happy, and that will then seal off and finish the whole tailgate assembly. Now the tailgate, for those who have seen past videos with the moth, I painted this once before. So I painted it once before and the moth landed on it. Then I repainted it and I assembled it. You would have seen when I did the bumper bar, but it wasn't polished. So I've given it a cut and polish, and yeah, it's come up like glass. It's not flat, but once I said, as I said before, I don't want to go too berserk on these panels. Just want to get them to a good state that I'm happy. That's pretty glassy and I can assemble it. And then yeah, once it's all assembled, I'm going to take it into a detail and get them to do a proper polish on them. So, but yeah, that's going to look sweet when it's actually mounted and not on the ute. Got to get the old crappy tailgate and dismantle the internal components. These two bits here, which will need to be stripped. The internal bracket system inside. And then I've already covered that. I've already painted that cover there in Raptor liner, so I can just grab that from upstairs and assemble it. I did debate about these tarp tiny clips. Obviously, you've got to drill holes in the beautiful panels after the fact. So now that'll be one of the last jobs that I do. Yeah, that'll be one of the last jobs that I do once it's all mounted and on the car. Then yeah, I'll go along and I'll mark those areas that need to be drilled. There might even be another solution that'll stop you from having to drill in them, but I don't think so. I think, yeah, you're going to get the strength, you're going to have to drill through. I don't think 3M tape, as strong as it is these days, would hold. So yeah, that's going to be a pretty dangerous component of the build. You don't want to slip and mark your paint, but I think if you mount those tiny clips first and stick with a bit of double-sided tape just to hold them in place, and then just drill in the holes as it's in there, then you won't be able to slip. You'll just go through, and you'll be able to line them up that way as well to make sure they're 100% lined up. I've just covered this up as well so that no overspray from the polish gets on, because I did notice, yeah, once this stuff dries, it's really hard to, little splatters and stuff on the chassis are really hard to get off. So I'm gonna have to give this a little clean at the end. They come off, but yeah, it takes a bit of elbow grease. So, all right, so yeah, let's get into this tailgate. Taking the hinges off, taking that cover off there where the handle goes, the lever, and then we've got this kind of, we've got a bracket here, which obviously bolts onto the tailgate, and then that spring latch there opens and closes that rod, which then latches onto what you saw before, those silver things I painted. Yeah, so these, from what I've seen secondhand, are fetching decent money. I don't know, I haven't looked if you can get a reproduction one, but this one's in pretty good nick. They don't get used a lot anyway, so they're not going to wear out too much. And yeah, it's amazing having cut this tailgate, the amount of sort of fabrication that's involved inside one of these tailgates is quite mind-blowing actually. And you know, you can get a reproduction one for $120. So I don't know how they do it. Obviously they do it in China, but yeah, so it's a fair bit of fabrication. You know, you got to fold that, you got to, you know, spot weld it on, and $120. Whereas I mentioned it before, that radiator support panel was $400, and I reckon this is more complicated. So I don't know why that is. It'd be very interesting to find out. Yeah, you see, you've even got captive nuts and stuff in these things. Let's get this thing out, clean her up, and get it ready to put on the new one. Disassembled it. This is what it looks like. So yeah, a couple of rods, rod on the end. These little sleeves here. So this is what, they'd probably come out, but I don't think I'll bother. That seems like it's aluminium, and that's just steel. So yeah, I'll put some paint stripper on that, get that paint off. Same with this one. And that seems to be electroplated, so I'll give it a clean. And these will just, yeah, just some normal springs, so, and clean that up as well, but that's in good nick. Pretty boring stuff, but I don't have to replace it, so let's start repairing it. Back in the shed, it's come time to assemble the tailgate. So that's Raptor lined. These have just got an enamel, it's a gloss black. They don't look fantastic, but they're good enough for a tailgate. So this handle was a bit of a contentious issue because it got stuck in there, and I lost it, I think, originally. So I ended up and pilfered the one from the HZ, and it was chrome, but I just painted it black. Thought it'd go with the actual Raptor liner. They're the internal springs. I couldn't find the screw, the original screw for that, but I found another one that will do. Yeah, that's an extra screw, so to mount the plate. And then this is the internal bracket that houses this in here, like that, and then that screws onto the actual tailgate. And then those two rods have got these special little clips, which I actually put into a solution. I put those little clips into a solution, Rust Blast, and the stuff actually, I left them in overnight for a couple of days too long, and it basically disintegrated them. So it's stronger than you think, and that's why it works well. So yeah, it's cleaned up all that stuff really well. On another note, I've gone through and restored the bonnet hinge, the bonnet latch with the spring. I've just painted that in enamel as well. In hindsight, you can actually see that. So, you know, that'll be sitting like that, but I'm happy with that. No one will ever notice. It's one thing I've noticed when you go to these car shows, you think people are going to notice stuff, and they don't. These are just enameled, so you can hardly see. These just hang over. You can pretty much just see that little corner there. It's not a great finish, but once again, I just wanted to stop the rust. So they're all done. That is beside the tailgate. So this is the main thing. Been wanting to get this for a while. They are bloody expensive. This is the black kit. A lot of people have said don't get Rare Spares rubber kits because they are a poor fit. I didn't know anywhere else to get them, so I just went with this. And I went Resto Country because I thought they may have a different kit, but they just sent me a Rare Spares one anyway. So I don't know if Resto Country is actually owned by Rare Spares, but they seem to only stock their stuff. It's a good kit. There's a couple of things in here that I may have not needed, and but it's nice to have new stuff anyway. Door belts. So these things I was looking forward to getting. The drain tubes, you would have seen that. They go in the cowl or the plenum chamber. And so another thing was the dust deflector, which goes, I'm pretty sure it goes under the guard. So you can choose these kits in different colours. I got the black. Pinch weld door seals. I think these are the things that everyone's talking about that aren't very good. So the clips on them aren't very good or something. Gasket kit for the tail lights. Mine are almost usable again, but it's the locking strip for the rear windshield. For all those that's taken one apart, you would notice that you peel that off and that's how you get it out. So it's nice to have that. This is the one I'm going to use now, the tailgate seal. And it just feels like wafer thin. Like I could just tear that with my thumb. I don't know whether they were the same when they rolled out of the factory, but yeah, hopefully they haven't tried to cut some corners with that, because that just feels shite. Things like this, you know, little grommet kit. You see these little grommet kits for the number plates, and you're like, oh, where am I going to get those from? But there they are. What else we got? The bumper kit. I've thought about doing some kind of retro. These for the bumperettes, but I thought to hide the bolt, I might actually put these on the rear tailgate so that I can access that screw that I'm putting in and use these. Otherwise, they'll go to waste. Although I could always use them on the HZ. Get on you, mate. Pivot seal. Wiper pivot seal. Valve. You would have seen those actually in the pillar. They've got this little, like a little bubble piece of rubber there. That's, most of it would be perished, but yeah, they're the replacements, which is pretty handy. And they throw in a bit of rubber magic, which is just, it protects the rubber. I mean, you can get this from Bunnings. What about a windscreen sealer? If you want to try and do the windscreen yourself, but I'll get someone to do that. Loctite adhesive. $660 that is. Can you believe it? It's probably about $50 worth of rubber, but yeah, $660. So enjoy. Alright, so that's it, the first fully assembled part of the ute, and I'm pretty happy with it. I know looks like we've been here before, you know, I dummy assembled this tailgate, but yeah, now obviously finished it off with the rubber strips and the bolts, and yeah, the tailgate hinges and everything's color coded. So when I mounted it, the latching points rubbed on the insides of the panel and the paint, and rubbed some paint off. So yeah, there's some things that can't be avoided, I guess. I try to hammer them back in a little bit just to get the two latches just to come in slightly, which helped it, but it's already taken the paint off on one side. So I'm thinking I might just get some Teflon strips or something, and or something that you can get that's gonna be hard, and then it'll just slide along on that point just before the latch hits, because otherwise it'll just end up rubbing that back to bare metal every time, and eventually, you know, rust. So I'll put some little bit of touch-up paint on it and look at something like that. It's bloody annoying, but the tolerance is so tight, I couldn't, yeah, it's just, it was just rubbing. So I think it'll be shut most of the time. I just don't want it to be open to rust and things like that. So I'm going to continue to put all the rubbers on, get the door seals on, and then I've got some butyl rubber that I'm going to start putting inside the cab. So I've got a couple of different options with that I'll go over in the next episode. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll have the gearbox in, and then we can start attaching that to the engine. And that would be awesome to finally lower the engine and the trans inside the ute. So once again, thanks for watching. Follow along if you haven't on Barnesys Builds on Instagram. I'm always posting updates on Instagram if you want to see stuff between episodes. Also, don't forget, if you want to grab a hat or any merch, jump on the merch store. The reason I do it is so I can get a little bit of extra money to finish this thing quicker. And yeah, so if you like these, go and grab one from that store. So thanks again, thanks for being patient, and I'll see you in the next episode.